Hello and welcome back to the continuation of our discussion for Chapter 5, Disaster Awareness, Preparedness, and Management. And for today, we will be discussing about bandaging. Bandaging, or the cloth used when it comes to bandaging, is typically or usually a triangular piece of cloth, and it is used to hold a dressing in place over a wound, or it is used to create pressure over a bleeding wound, to control hemorrhage, or to secure spleen to an injured part of the body. And its main aim or its main purpose is to, of course, control the bleeding. It is used to secure the spleens and, of course, to immobilize and support body parts. So, what are the different parts of a triangular bandage? First, we have the tip or the apex, then we have the sides, then the tail, and then of course we have the base. And there are different ways on how we can fold the bandage or this triangular bandage depending on the size of the wound. First, we have the open face, which is in its triangular form itself, and it can be used for wounds that are located on the head, on the top side, on our face, on the back of the head, on our chest, or on our back, on our foot, or on our hand. While we have the broad cravat, so from this open face, we're going to take the apex and then fold it once. And then next we have the semi-broad cravat face. So from this position, we're just going to fold it once more. And then for smaller wounds, we can use the narrow cravat face, wherein we just have to fold it one more time. So these different cravat faces would of course depend on the size of the wound, but it can be used for wounds that are located on the forehead, eye, ear, our cheek, jaw, shoulders, hip, on our arm, leg, elbow, knees, or maybe to put pressure on our palm or the back of our hand. Now we have to always remember that it must be proper, neat, and correct. And when we are tying it, it should not be too loose or too tight. So we have to always make sure or check for the tightness because it might cause some swelling later on. And of course, when you are tying it, make sure that you're going to use the square knot. So how are we going to tie a square knot? First, get the two tails of the bandage and put it in your right arm and left arm, and then the right tail, put it over the left, and then under and over the left tail, and then left over right, and then let it pass through, and then lastly pull each end to make it tight. Now to untie it, it is very simple. You just have to pull one of the ends of the bandage and then make sure to hold the knot to secure so that it won't be moving, and then you can simply pull the knot over and then it will come loose. Now there are different um, techniques when it comes to bandaging. You have the triangle of forehead or the scalp, and this is used to hold dressing on the forehead or our scalp. So its process is simply um, place the middle base of the bandage so that the edge is just above the eyebrows, and then bring the apex back and let it drop over our head, and then bring the two triangular backwards over the ear, and then next cross cross over the ends of the apex and then around the head and then tie it in a square knot. And then for the apex that is still there, you just have to tack it in. You can use a safety pin, or you can just tack it in this part. Or when the injury is found on the arm or elbows, we can use the triangular arm sling, which is used to support fractures or injuries on the hand, wrist, or forearm. So the first step is to place one of the tails on the shoulder on the of the injured arm, and then the apex would be on the place right under the elbow, and then pull the other end of the tail, and then put it around the neck, and then tie it at the back. And then for the apex that is located here, you can just tuck it in this space here, or you can use a safety pin. Another way on how we can apply the triangular sling is place it horizontally, I mean vertically, on the opposite shoulder of the injured arm. So let's say if this is the injured arm, the two tails will be placed vertically on the opposite shoulder, and then you're going to get the tail here, and then you're going to insert it on the armpit of the injured arm, and then lastly tie it at the back, the two tails, and of course the apex. You can just tuck it in, or you can use safety pins. How Now if the injury is found on the chest or back, we can use the triangle of chest or back, and you can simply drop the apex of triangle over the shoulder on the injured side, and bring the bandage down to the chest or back to cover dressing, so that the middle of the base of bandage is directly below injury, and then turn up a calf of base, this one, and then carry the ends around and tie it in a square knot, leaving one end longer than the other. And then of course for the apex, bring it down and tie it to a long end of the first knot. The fourth one is the cravat of head or ear, which is used to apply pressure to control hemorrhage for wounds that are located on the scalp, or to hold dressing on wounds on ear or the lower scalp. So place the middle cravat or dressing on depending on where the wound is located. So let's say in this image, the wound is located at the right upper part of the ear. So if that is where the wound is located, you're going to put the middle part there of the bandage, and then turn it around on the other side and let it cross, and then bring it back to the injured or to the wounded part, and then that's where you're going to tie the square knot to put more pressure on the wound. And lastly, we have the cravat to jaw, and this is used to dressing on the chin, cheeks, or scalp, ends upward with one or longer than the other. So after making a triangular bandage into a cravat of proper width, place it under um, the chin with one longer than the other. And then what you're going to do is let it cross on one side of the um, ear side, and bring it around, or let it cross first on this side and then bring it around, and then tie it on the other side, and of course use the square knot. Okay, so moving on, or lastly, we have rappelling. And rappelling is also referred to as wrapping, or the European abseiling, which is from the Greek word abseilin, meaning to rope down, and it is the controlled descent down a steep terrain using a fixed rope. The original body rappel was known as the dolphoses, that can run rope around the rappeller's body for friction. Now, it is important to understand that rappelling is dangerous, and rappelling accidents results in injury or even death sometimes. So here are the following things that are very important when it comes that we have to consider. First, of course, is to verify the rope reaches the target. Of course, you must familiarize yourself with the height of the place that you are trying to climb up or going down, so that you can also try to check how long the rope that you're going to need. And then of course check your harness, your and all the rigging prior going to over the edge, and make sure that the every part or the carabiners are locked and not cross-loaded. And of course, it is better if you're going to use the body system or body check system to have your rigging inspected by other person. And then employ a secondary conditional self belay. It is an auto block, or it is used as a backup, and this helps keep the brake and below the descending device. It actually helps to try to control or put brake when you are trying to release the rope. So, and then of course always carry with you cutting tools and backup ropes that you can use. So remember that a rope under tension cuts extremely well or easily. So always avoid dislodging rocks with the rope, and then do not bounce during rappel because dangerously shocks the rappel anchor, and it of course might break the rope. And then descend slowly and avoid excessive heat buildup. And lastly, use well-fitting gloves when rappelling, otherwise they become a safety hazard. Moving on, prior to rappelling, you should check every aspect of your system. The rappelling's system acronym BRAKES was developed by Cyril um, about 10 years ago, and it is widely used by climbing schools, and it can be easily employed as a pre-rappel checklist. And it is a good idea to go through this list out loud by stating each letter and touching the part of the system you're checking. So here are the additional precautions or reminders that we must consider or remember when or during rappelling. We have the B for buckles. Always check your buckles on your harness and make sure that they are snug and that are all appropriate straps are double checked. And then we have the R, which stands for the rappel device or the ropes. Check that the carabiner are attached to your device is locked. Both the strand of the rope has been loaded correctly in the device, and the rope is properly threaded through the rappel anchor. And then we have the anchor, which um, confirm that the anchor is strong. It is, if you tied it in a tree, make sure that it's alive because it might, because of your weight, it might pull the tree. And then make sure that whatever you are tying it is, make sure that it is large enough to hold your weight and that it has a good root base. If it is a boulder, ensure or make sure that it is not going to move. If rappelling off bolts or gear, confirm that they are suitably strong enough. So double check that any webbing or cording isn't damaged or too faded. Basically, this anchor is the rope that you're going to tie yourself with, or the rope that you're going to rappel from. So the next one is you have the nuts. Check all the nuts in the system and make sure that nuts adjoining two ropes in a double rope rappel are correctly tied with enough tail. And then make, which leads us to the ends, and confirm that the ends of your rope are not on the ground and they reach the next anchor. And of course confirm that your system is closed with nuts at the end of your rappel lines, because this also acts as a secondary brake, but make sure that they are not all tied up because it might become a problem when you are rappelling down. And of course, lastly, letter S would be safety backup or sharp edges. Use an auto block backup and check to make sure that you aren't going to rappel over any sharp edges. When we say the safety backup, It is, like we said a while ago, it is another type of lock which has an auto lock with it that helps you control um, how fast the rope will be, how fast will it let go of the rope. Okay, so these are just some things that we have to remember when it comes to rappelling. So that ends our discussion for chapter 5. Thank you and good day.